Have you ever found yourself just, quickly clicking I agree on a terms of service thing without really looking? Let's be honest, most of us, well, we're guilty of it. But what if those agreements, those like dense blocks of text, are hiding really crucial details, especially when it comes to these cutting-edge AI services like Nouswise? The stakes around your data, your interactions, they feel higher. So today, we're doing a deep dive into Nouswise's legal documents, their mere terms of service, the privacy policy, even the enterprise and ABI stuff. Our mission, to uncover what you, as a learner, as a user, might see as genuine red flags hiding in plain sight.
Indeed. And these documents, they're carefully crafted, mainly to protect the company, obviously. But understanding them is really your key to protecting yourself, your data, maybe even your legal options down the line. We're going to sort of peel back the layers, pull out the most critical points. We'll touch on common clauses, things you see everywhere. But more importantly, we'll pinpoint the nuances, the things specific to AI services. Think of it as the shortcut to being properly informed without reading pages and pages of legalese.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to unpack that fine print, find some maybe surprising facts about what you're agreeing to, and help you recognize what might actually be a red flag in these agreements we bump into every day online. So let's pull back that curtain. Okay, so let's start right at the top, the general terms of service, Section 9, I think. It kicks off with this bold warning, something pretty significant. It's about your day in court, or maybe not having one. What's going on there?
That's right. Section 9 lays out a mandatory arbitration clause and a class action waiver. What this means, basically, is by agreeing, you're giving up your right to have disputes settled by a judge or jury in a normal court. Instead, you agree to sort things out privately through arbitration. And, importantly, you also can't join in on class action lawsuits with other users who might have the same problem.
Right, so if something goes wrong, you're stuck with this private process, not a public court case.
Yeah.
And you can't team up with others in a group lawsuit. That sounds huge for an individual user. Is there any way around that at all?
Well, there are a few limited exceptions, like disputes small enough for small claims court, or certain intellectual property claims, or if you need what's called injunctive relief, basically asking a court to make them stop doing something. But crucially, the terms, Section 9.4.5, do give you a chance to opt out of the arbitration part. You have to send a written notice, email or mail, within 30 days of first signing up or agreeing. But, and this is really key, opting out of arbitration doesn't automatically get you out of the class action waiver. So even if you opt out of arbitration for your own case, you still can't join a group action.
Okay, that's a really important distinction. That 30-day window is tight, too. Easy to miss. And losing the class action option, that's a major limitation on user power, isn't it? Definitely feels like something to be aware of, a potential red flag right there. All right, moving from the courtroom to, well, the engine of AI data. When we use these services, we're constantly feeding them info, the input, and getting stuff back, the output. So what exactly happens to your input after you provide it? And what about the output you get?
Okay, so under the general terms, Section 2.4.2, you grant Nouswise a really, really broad license for what they call your content. That includes your input. The license is described as royalty-free, transferable, sub-licensable, worldwide, and irrevocable. It's like giving someone keys to your digital stuff forever, globally, and they can even give copies of those keys to others. They say it's to operate, improve, promote, and provide the services. They can also share it with others if needed for the service or, disclose it if legally required.
Irrevocable. That word just jumps out, doesn't it? It sounds like once they have it for good, even if you stop using Nouswise. Is that right? What are the practical implications there? Seems like a big deal.
Yeah, your read is pretty much spot on. Irrevocable means that license doesn't just end if you delete your account. Theoretically, they could continue using or modifying content you provided under that license, which for many users is a concern. It feels like losing control long term. And it raises that big question. Does improving services mean they can use your input to train their main AI models? The general consumer terms. They don't explicitly say no. That ambiguity, well, that could be seen as a red flag. However, for enterprise and API users, it's different. There's a really important distinction. The enterprise terms and their data processing addendum explicitly state, Nouswise does not and will not use customer content to train, retrain, or improve Nouswise's foundation models. And the API terms say something similar, that they mainly get log data, not personal data, unless you send it.
Okay, that's a critical difference. So regular users, your data might be used for general model improvement. But the bigger clients, paying for enterprise or API access, get specific protection against their data being used for training the core models. That's a huge disparity in data treatment. What about the output? The stuff the AI gives you?
Right, the output. Well, the terms say you can't publish it without clearly citing Newswise, and you can't pretend it wasn't AI generated.
Hmm.
Also, you have to acknowledge the output might be, frankly, wrong, incorrect, biased, incomplete, and Newswise takes no responsibility or liability if using that output infringes someone else's rights. Plus, they point out because it's generative AI, other users might get very similar or even identical outputs. So it's not necessarily unique, could be flawed, and you're responsible if you use it and cause problems.
Wow. Okay. So you can't really claim it as your own unique creation. It might be unreliable, and others might get the same thing. What if you give them feedback? Say you suggest a great new feature.
Feedback. According to Section 2.3, any feedback you provide becomes their sole and exclusive property. They can use it, disclose it, do whatever they want with it, basically. No notice, no compensation to you. You retain no rights to your own ideas once you share them as feedback. It's theirs, free and clear.
Okay, now this section feels like where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people. Disclaimers and liability. What is Nouswise explicitly not promising about its services?
Across all their terms, general, enterprise, API, it's pretty consistent. The services are provided as IS and as available. That's a really significant legal disclaimer. Think of it like buying something used as is. No warranties. They disclaim all warranties, express or implied. Things like merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. There's absolutely no guarantee the service will be complete, accurate, secure, reliable, meet your needs, or even that it will be uninterrupted or error-free.
So buyer beware, basically. Don't rely on it being perfect. But what if something does go seriously wrong, like a massive data breach or a system failure that loses your work? What's the actual financial recourse?
Well, their liability is heavily limited, massively, some might say, for almost any kind of damages, indirect, special, consequential, punitive. They say they're generally not liable. And their total liability to you for everything combined is capped. It's capped at the greater of either 100 US dollars, $100, or the amount you actually paid them in the last 6 months, if anything.
$100. It seems incredibly low, especially if you're using this for, say, important work or even a business. Imagine relying on it heavily. Something goes catastrophically wrong, and your maximum claim is $100.
Yeah.
That's a serious risk. But hang on, you mentioned a flip side. What about the user's responsibility if they mess up?
Yes. And this is definitely something to flag. The indemnification clause. It's in all the terms. Indemnification basically means if you do something using their service that causes trouble, maybe you violate the terms, misuse the service, infringe someone's rights with content you upload, or you're just negligent, you have to cover their back, you agree to defend, indemnify, and hold the company entities harmless from pretty much any claim, cost, damage, loss, liability, expense, including their legal fees. And, get this, they can even take control of the legal defense or settlement for those claims.
So you're potentially on the hooks not just for your own legal mess, but for their legal bills too. And they might control how it's handled. Wow, that puts a huge amount of risk and responsibility onto the user. Definitely another red flag. Okay, beyond the legal stuff, how much actual control does Newswise keep over your account and the service once you're in? Can they just, pull the plug on you?
Pretty much, yes. They retain quite a bit of control. Across all the terms documents, they state, Newswise reserves the right to suspend, disable, or delete your account and access to the services, or any part of the services, and they can do it with or without notice for any or no reason.
Any or no reason. That sounds completely arbitrary. Gives them total discretion to just cut you off.
It is very broad, yes, and there's more. Under the general terms, if they delete your account because they suspect you breached the terms, you're banned from re-registering under a different name. And while they might delete your content if your account is deleted, they state they are not obligated to do so. They explicitly say they shall not be responsible for the failure to delete or deletion of your content. So your stuff might just hang around on their servers even after you're gone, which, impacts your digital footprint.
Right, so your content could persist even without your account. That's important for managing your online presence. What about changes to the rules themselves? Or the price? Can they just change things whenever they want?
They absolutely can modify the terms whenever they feel like it. Now, for material changes, they say they may use reasonable efforts to try and notify you, maybe an email, maybe a banner on the site. And this is classic terms of service stuff. It's ultimately your sole responsibility to check the terms regularly for changes. If you keep using the service after they've changed the terms, that counts as you accepting the new terms, whether you read them or not. And pricing changes, especially for API users, could even happen immediately if it's for, say, legal reasons.
So the onus is entirely on the user to constantly check for updates. Otherwise, you might be bound by new rules without realizing it. And you mentioned payments. What about subscriptions?
Right. For paid services, subscriptions automatically renew at whatever the current rates are at the time of renewal. And generally, payments for subscriptions are non-refundable. Doesn't matter if you used it or not, that period. So if you forget to cancel before the renewal date, you're typically locked in and won't get that money back. Another practical point to watch.
Okay, let's shift to privacy specifically. Beyond data ownership and how your input's used, what else should we know about how they handle your info? Security, for instance.
Well, the privacy policy in Section 8 does say they make reasonable efforts to protect your information. They mention using encryption, but they're also very upfront. No method of electronic storage or transmission over the internet is impenetrable.
Yeah.
They explicitly state they cannot guarantee absolute security of your data.
That's a stark reminder, isn't it? Even with good intentions, perfect security online is just not guaranteed. How long do they keep your data hanging around? Is there a set limit?
Not really a hard limit. They say they keep your information as long as is reasonably necessary for the purposes they list, and those purposes are broad: providing the service, resolving disputes, enforcing agreements, preventing harm, safety, security, protecting themselves. It gives them a lot of flexibility, a lot of discretion. It's hard for you to know exactly when your data might actually be deleted.
Okay. And what's this about them collecting info from outside sources? Not just what you give them directly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Section 2 of the privacy policy mentions they might get info about you from other places. Things like career sites. They mention LinkedIn consumer marketing databases, business partners, even publicly available sources. And they might use this, for example, to process job applications if you apply, or maybe to customize advertising you see, which might be surprising if you assumed they only use the data you actively provide within the Nouswise service.
And do they share our information with other companies? Or keep it all within Nouswise?
They definitely use third-party services. They list Google Play services, Google Analytics, Microsoft Clarity in the policy, and they clearly state they aren't responsible for the privacy or security practices of those third parties. So once data goes to Google Analytics, for instance, Google's policy applies to that piece. Also, anything you post in public or semi-public areas, like maybe linked social media, could be seen by other users or people on those platforms.
Right. And finally, for users outside the U.S., where does all this data actually live? Where is it processed?
Good question. The privacy policy, Section 10, confirms that the personal info they collect gets transferred to, stored in, processed in, or accessed from countries outside your home jurisdiction. They specifically mention their servers are in the U.S., so by using the service and agreeing to the policy, you're consenting to your data being moved across borders, primarily to the U.S., which means U.S. laws and regulations might apply to your data regardless of where you live.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big picture here? We've seen quite a range. Some standard stuff, sure, but also clauses that really might give you pause, especially things like the arbitration clauses, limiting legal options, and the complex ways your data, your input, your output can be used and kept.
Absolutely. Understanding these terms, it isn't just about the legalese. It's crucial. It lets you actually weigh the benefits of the service, the convenience, the utility against the implications for you personally and legally. It really pushes you to think critically about how these digital interactions are governed instead of just, clicking agree.
Yeah, ultimately it boils down to making an informed choice about your digital life, your digital footprint, the agreements you make. And as AI gets woven deeper into everything we do, knowing what you're signing up for, spotting those potential red flags, it's just more important than ever.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, if even a free version of a service comes with these kinds of extensive terms. Terms that shift responsibility, limit your rights. What are the hidden costs we're paying beyond just money by not engaging with this fine print? Especially with something as powerful as AI. The convenience is obvious, but what's the real price for our rights, our control over our own digital selves?
That's definitely something to think about as you navigate this digital world. Thanks for diving deep with us today.